So this actually has the potential to be one of the coolest camps I've ever set up. Just because, you know, usually when you're kayak camping, like, you're out in the open, you know. It's hard to find a cove like this to kind of settle into. It's very rare. I get kind of lucky. It's funny how luck works. You know, I was unlucky about the wind, but the wind blew me into this cove. So, you know, not a lot of kayaking today, but definitely plenty of time at this camp because, you know, it's not completely cleared out, but there's definitely potential. There's so much potential here. I could even probably nestle a little fire in here at some point. Yeah, I should have brought my shears. I think some national forests like this, I wouldn't say they encourage setting up camps to camp at, right? But like, you know, if you start clearing out spots and people start coming back more often, that's kind of part of the point too. You know, it's being preserved for people to use. It's public. So if you start, you know, bringing shears out with you and not making a big change, you know, leave no trace is important, but you also have to understand the balance there, because if you have more people caring more about land like this, you know, maybe coming out more often, then, you know, this kind of land's more likely to be preserved longer, right? So with that, if you're gonna try to set up a little spot, you know, sometimes like Boy Scout troops will do it for like bigger forests with with well-maintained trails, right? You have to just be mindful and keep it simple and minimize your effect, right? So like if you're going to be cutting branches or something, I might start, you know, I'd start by throwing some of the very, very thin stuff down in this muddy area to kind of reinforce what I've been like squishing up, you know? So like reinforce the landing zone, you know, and then really be mindful about where you set up because you're going to clear a decent amount. Like if I were to hammock like probably between this tree and then this one right here, like, you know, there's some things in the way that, you know, I'd rather not kill, but you know, it would be part of setting up there, right? Or I could think of somewhere else to minimize it. You know, so there's that kind of thought. And then it's really not a good idea to have a fire in general. It's neat. A lot of people think it's neat. Like, you know, go camping, have a campfire, but you know, there's a time and a place for sure. You know, if it's cold and not windy, and you got a bunch of firewood, and there's a fire ring, and you know, it's all safe and stuff. You know, that's a good time for it. But if you're not sure about it, it doesn't make camping that much more special. It just makes it more of a headache. Okay. You don't need it. If you're getting cold, that means you didn't bring enough layers. So don't think you need to have a fire just to stay warm. But if you're cooking food, see, that's the thing. If you're cooking food, which I don't usually do, but like if I'm going to be out some places long, so fishing or something, like, you know, boiling water, that kind of thing, you know, it makes sense. You got to just make sure it's tucked in, you know, just like find some natural boundaries, right? Like this stump over here. Like if I were to put a fire ring, you know, it'd be over here somewhere. Or really close to the water. That's one way to make sure it doesn't get out of control. But this kind of wind, like, I'm not messing with that. I'm not, and everything's kind of wet, so it's like, there's plenty of firewood, and I might start collecting. So the point of the rant. One thing that helps no matter what is cleaning up dead branches. So if you find some, and you start breaking them down, even if you're not going to have a fire, right? You're making the area like clearer, and it's making it more obvious where to set up camp, right? If you start doing that first, if you're not sure like what trees to set up, see, it's actually happening as we speak. Now that I'm clearing this out, I actually think there's not really too much of a boundary like between this tree and this tree to set up the hammock. If I did trim, it'd just be like a couple little things, right? But the point is start cleaning up the dead wood. Maybe make a little pile of it. Even if you're not having a fire, it's one of those things that shows people that the area is getting used, right? And you can always kind of reinforce the area you're like messing around into, Alright, so yeah, easily one of the coolest camps potentially I've been at, just because this right here, like the fact that it's tucked in, this cove, I feel like I'm actually hidden. Like if people were out looking for me, which God, I hope nobody is, but if they were, they wouldn't be able to find me. So they would need some fancy cameras, some thermal stuff. That's some kind of thermal situation. Because I usually don't post these longer videos until I'm back from places I go, and I don't usually go places twice, so I might though. Maybe you'll find this camp. I'll set up something. If you're watching this and you really like adventure kayaking and you don't mind some waves and wind and almost getting flipped over, because like another point is if you're on a bunch of waves in a lake like this, something that can happen very easily, like if you're going too fast, it could put you on a stump, and if it puts you on a stump and then you're still moving and then you hit that center of balance, like, it could be bad. I'm lucky to have a wide bottom boat, but if you had something narrow or in that moment you're like, you have your hands full or something, you can't quickly navigate, that could, you get stuck on there, and then another wave comes, and it's either, even if you're not getting flipped, that's the thing, even if you're not getting flipped, like just getting stuck on a stump or something and at the wrong angle can have waves coming over the side, which nobody wants that. Yeah, so if you feel like exploring Grand Lake, you definitely have to beware of the stumps. If you're exploring the cove, you actually have to go out into the water a little bit to follow the shoreline instead of like going in and out of the shorelines, because that's just a whole other, there's so many stumps, like even out, it seems like they're far away, but like, I mean, you can see how there's trees out, like in the, like way out there, like, so there's old stumps out there too, and they'll be like just below the water. So yeah, definitely, I don't think a place for like a motorized boat, unless you have one of those flat, like skiff, I think they're called skiffs. Those little flat ones for fishing. Like, if I had one of those, I would think about going straight across. But it gets so tiring. Like, it's just so exhausting to try to cut straight through the lake in the wind. And then when you take a break, it's like you start getting pulled backwards and stuff, so it's not fun. Definitely better than like ocean currents, and the channels are, you know, closer to the coast. There's tidal creeks and all that, but definitely not expecting this much wind and waves on like a clear day. But yeah, easily one of the coolest camps ever.